The year was 2389. Humanity had spread its wings across the stars. Earth, no longer bound by the limits of a single planet, was now part of a vast intergalactic community. Many species, some ancient, others newly discovered, had joined together under the banner of the Galactic Concord, a powerful alliance of alien races that controlled large parts of the galaxy. But despite Earth's achievements, one thing remained clear: humanity was weak. While other species had advanced war fleets, Earth was still building up its military strength. Their ships were outdated, their technology primitive compared to the Concord's best. Earth had to make a decision: catch up with the rest of the galaxy or risk being left behind. One day, a message arrived from the Galactic Concord. They were offering Earth a deal. The message, sent by a high-ranking Concord official, promised a solution to humanity's problems. It seemed too good to be true. "We will sell you our finest warships," the message stated. "With our advanced ships, you will be able to protect your world and assert your position in the galaxy. For a price, of course." It was an offer Earth could not refuse. The Concord had been one of the most powerful galactic forces for centuries. Their ships were massive, heavily armed, and technologically superior to anything humanity had. The leaders of Earth, desperate to secure their place in the galaxy, quickly accepted. The deal was struck, and soon after, large freighters filled with Concord warships began arriving at Earth's orbit. They were majestic, sleek, and promised to make humanity a force to be reckoned with. The leaders gathered in their grand chambers, watching the ships in awe as they slowly approached. They were ready to receive their new fleet. But something was wrong. When the first ships landed, the excitement turned to confusion. They were rusted. The sleek, advanced vessels from the message were nowhere to be seen. Instead, what stood before Earth were old, dilapidated warships. Massive rust spots covered the hulls, their engines sputtered, and many parts were clearly missing or broken. The Earth's military commanders quickly took charge, inspecting the ships with growing concern. The Concord had lied. These were not the advanced warships they had been promised. Instead, they were nothing more than scraps. Outdated, barely functional ships from centuries ago. Ships that the Concord had clearly discarded as useless. The leaders demanded an explanation from the Galactic Concord. The Concord official who had sent the original message was summoned for an emergency meeting. As he arrived, the humans were already furious. "What is this?" the Earth president asked, his voice cold with anger. "We were promised powerful ships to defend our planet. Instead, we get rusted junk." The Concord official stood tall, his face expressionless. He seemed unbothered by the anger in the room. "These ships were once great, Earthlings," he replied with a calm, almost mocking tone. "But your people, you're not ready for our best. You are not yet worthy of our most advanced technology. These ships will be enough for your world's limited needs." The humans were stunned. They had been betrayed, tricked into believing they were receiving a gift of power, when in reality, they had been sold the galaxy's leftover garbage. The Concord's words stung, but they weren't just mocking them. They were underestimating humanity. They had made a grave mistake. As the leaders sat in stunned silence, a quiet realization spread through the room. The Concord had made one fatal error. They had not only underestimated humanity's resolve, they had unknowingly sparked something that would change the galaxy forever. One of the senior officers, General Mark Rahl, stood up. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with a newfound fire. "We will make these ships work," he said firmly. "If they think we can't fight, if they think we're weak, they're about to learn a hard lesson." His words echoed through the room. The others nodded in agreement. They would not let this betrayal stand. They had been handed junk, but they would turn it into something far more dangerous. They would use these rusted warships to teach the Concord a lesson they would never forget. But that wasn't all. Deep in the shadows of Earth's top-secret military facilities, a small group of scientists and engineers began working on something far more important. They were determined to do what no one thought possible: create a weapon so powerful, so silent, that the Concorde would never see it coming. They didn't just want to fix the ships. They wanted to forge an unstoppable force out of their broken pieces. Meanwhile, back in the Concorde, the news of Earth's reaction reached the ears of the Galactic Council. They didn't take it seriously at first. After all, Earth was a young and weak species in their eyes. But the truth was, they had made a huge mistake in their thinking. The humans were angry, and anger often created the most dangerous kind of force. The Concorde's leader, a tall, imposing figure known as Supreme Commander Taro, laughed when he heard about Earth's response. Let them try. They'll soon learn their place. What he didn't realize, however, was that Earth's place in the galaxy was about to change forever. Look, the humans had been betrayed, but little did the Concorde know. They had just awakened a power far greater than they could have imagined. Earth had been deceived, and its leaders were now left to pick up the pieces. The Concorde had sold them rusted, outdated warships, and the people of Earth were furious. But they were also determined. Their leaders, generals, and scientists knew this betrayal would not be the end. It would be the beginning of a new chapter in humanity's history. Hidden away in Earth's most secure military facilities, a team of the planet's top engineers and scientists gathered in secrecy. They had one goal: to turn these rusted, useless ships into something that could strike fear into the hearts of the most powerful races in the galaxy. If the Concorde thought they could mock humanity, they would soon realize their mistake. The Concorde ships, once sleek and majestic, were now in terrible condition. Massive rust spots covered the hulls. Engines failed to start, and some ships were completely unrepairable. But none of this discouraged the engineers. They worked tirelessly, fueled by the anger of betrayal and the desire for revenge. General Mark Rahl, one of Earth's top military minds, was among the first to arrive at the makeshift shipyards on the moon. The ships stood like broken giants, their once proud forms barely recognizable. The sight filled him with both rage and determination. He knew that these ships could be turned into weapons. He just needed the right minds to make it happen. Don't look at these as scraps, General Rahl said to the team of engineers and military commanders who had gathered. Look at them as a challenge. We have one chance to turn this around. The engineers nodded in agreement, but even they could see how daunting the task ahead of them was. The Concorde had not just sold them old ships, they had sold them junk. Some of the warships were so badly damaged that only their skeletons remained. But it was within this challenge that Earth's brightest minds saw an opportunity. They had been dealt a cruel blow, but they would turn that blow into something that could shatter the galaxy. We have the technology, one of the lead engineers, Dr. Leela Harris, said, tapping on the datapad in her hand. We can integrate the best of human engineering and reverse engineer what the Concorde didn't think we could understand. It will take time, but we can do it. The team got to work, stripping down the ships to their most basic components. They studied every system, every piece of technology, and reverse engineered whatever they could. Earth didn't have the Concorde's advanced technology, at least not yet, but they had something just as powerful: their ingenuity. As days turned into weeks, the team slowly began to transform the ships. They reinforced the hulls with newly developed alloys stronger than anything the Concorde used. The engines were replaced with human-made prototypes, faster, more efficient, and capable of withstanding the stress of battle. But perhaps most importantly, they began working on something the Concorde had never seen before: a new kind of weapon. Deep within the shipyard, Dr. Harris led a secret project: the development of an artificial intelligence that would control the ships in ways that no other fleet in the galaxy could match. Unlike anything the Concorde used, the AI would be silent, undetectable, and deadly. It would think faster than any human could, making split-second decisions in the heat of battle, adapting to changing situations, and eliminating targets before they even knew what hit them. The AI, which they called Ghost, was designed to be the heart of Earth's new fleet. It would be able to calculate the best strategy for every battle, every confrontation, and more importantly, It would never hesitate. It would be the perfect weapon, silent, invisible, and ruthless. As the modifications continued, tensions were rising on Earth. The Galactic Concord had no idea what humanity was building. They had underestimated them, laughing at the idea that Earth could ever challenge their superiority. But they were wrong. Across the galaxy, the Concord was preparing for what they thought would be a simple military operation. Earth had been weak, and the Concord had no reason to believe that their technology could be surpassed. They were focused on crushing what they saw as a minor annoyance, a small planet with no real power. They had no idea what was coming for them. But General Rawl and Dr. Harris knew. They knew that the time to strike back was coming, and they would be ready. The ships, once worthless, were becoming something else entirely. The Silent Destroyer, as it was now called, was nearing completion. It was more than just a ship. It was a symbol of humanity's defiance. The Concord had expected them to roll over in fear, but they were about to learn that humanity's resolve was far stronger than they could have ever imagined. One night, as the engineers put the final touches on the Silent Destroyer, Dr. Harris stood in front of the ship's massive hull, her hand resting on the cold metal. The ship was nearly finished, and her heart raced as she thought about what they had accomplished. They had taken what was supposed to be their downfall and turned it into their greatest weapon. Soon, she whispered to herself, "We will show them what humanity is capable of." And with that, the Silent Destroyer, the culmination of humanity's fury and ingenuity, began its journey into the stars. The Concord might have thought they had dealt a final blow to Earth, but in truth, they had only sparked the creation of something far more dangerous than they could ever imagine. The first strike was coming, and it would be silent, swift, and unstoppable. The time for words had passed. Humanity had been humiliated, mocked, and betrayed. But now, the tables were about to turn. The Galactic Concord, with their vast fleets and advanced technology, had underestimated the resolve of Earth's people. They thought they could crush humanity with a few simple tricks, selling them broken ships and laughing at their weakness. But they hadn't counted on one thing: humanity's ability to fight back when cornered. The Silent Destroyer had taken shape, its hull gleaming under the dim lights of Earth's moon. The modifications were complete. The AI, Ghost, had been fully integrated into the ship's core systems, and the ship's cloaking technology was perfected. It was more than a warship. It was a ghost in the machine, designed to be undetectable, silent, and lethal. And now it was ready to be deployed. On Earth's surface, tensions were mounting. News of the Concord's impending invasion had spread across the planet like wildfire. Every major city was on high alert. Governments scrambled to prepare for an attack they knew was coming, but deep down, they feared the worst. The Concord's fleet was too powerful. Even if the Silent Destroyer could turn the tide, the rest of Earth's military might not be enough to fend off the full force of the alien alliance. General Mark Rawl stood in a command center, his face grim. He stared at the screen in front of him, watching the movement of the Concord's fleet as it made its way toward Earth. Hundreds of ships, each one a deadly force in its own right. Yet, he wasn't worried. Not anymore. "We have one shot," Rawl said, turning to the group of officers and engineers around him. "The Silent Destroyer is ready, and it's our only chance to make it through this. We won't just be fighting for Earth, we'll be fighting for our future." There was a silence in the room as the weight of his words sank in. But despite the gravity of the situation, there was something else in the air, a feeling of determination. Humanity wasn't just going to survive this fight. They were going to make the Concord regret ever underestimating them. Up in space, the Silent Destroyer's engines hummed to life. The ship, cloaked and undetectable, moved silently out of Earth's orbit, heading toward the incoming alien fleet. The ship was smaller than most of the Concord's vessels, but it was designed for precision, stealth, and sheer devastation. Unlike the Concord's massive warships, the Silent Destroyer wasn't built to dominate through size or numbers. It was built to strike fast, strike hard, and leave nothing behind. As the silent destroyer approached the alien fleet, its sensors locked onto their massive ships. The Concorde had no idea what was coming. Their fleet continued to make its way toward Earth's orbit, unaware that the biggest threat they had ever faced was already among them. The first sign of the silent destroyer's presence came when the lead Concorde battleship, a massive warship with towering weapons and shields, exploded in a blinding flash. No warning, no signal, just a sudden burst of light and debris. The Concorde fleet froze. Panic spread through their ranks. What had happened? There had been no contact, no alarms. The ship had just vanished. Before they could react, another Concorde ship exploded, then another. The silent destroyer struck without mercy, its weapons hitting targets with pinpoint accuracy. Its cloaking system kept it hidden from the alien ships, and its speed ensured that by the time the Concorde knew it was under attack, it was already too late. Inside the silent destroyer, Dr. Leela Harris and the engineers watched the battle unfold. They had designed the ship to be a weapon of precision, capable of taking down a fleet without ever being detected. The AI, Ghost, calculated every move, adapting to the changing tactics of the Concorde fleet. It was a deadly game of chess, and Ghost was playing it flawlessly. "This is it," Dr. Harris whispered, watching the explosions in the distance. "We're doing it." But just as they celebrated their early successes, a warning flashed on the screen. The Concorde fleet had started to regroup. Their commanders, shaken but not defeated, were beginning to figure out what was happening. They didn't know exactly what they were up against, but they could sense something wasn't right. "They're starting to fight back," General Rawl said, his voice steady. "They won't give up that easily. They've got reinforcements coming." Dr. Harris' fingers flew over her console. "Ghost is adapting. It's learning their movements. We need to stay ahead of them." The silent destroyer continued its assault, each strike a calculated blow to the heart of the Concorde fleet. But it wasn't just the ships that were under attack. The very confidence of the Concorde was beginning to crumble. For the first time in centuries, they were facing an enemy they couldn't understand. They were facing humanity's ingenuity, and they didn't know how to counter it. But the battle was far from over. The Concorde, now fully aware that something had gone horribly wrong, had begun to adapt. They were no longer underestimating Earth. They had learned the hard way that humanity wasn't going to just roll over and die. As the battle raged on, the Concorde's leaders gathered in their command center, furious and confused. Supreme Commander Taro, the leader of the Galactic Concorde, slammed his fist against the table. "This is no accident," he growled. "They've got a weapon. I want every ship on high alert. We will find it, and we will destroy it." But the Concorde's arrogance had clouded their judgment. They still thought they could win. They didn't understand that humanity had already won something far more important, the element of surprise. And with every passing moment, that advantage was growing stronger. The silent destroyer wasn't just a ship, it was a symbol of humanity's power, ingenuity, and unbreakable will. The war had begun, and Earth's response would not be forgotten. The Concorde had made a terrible mistake, and now they were about to learn just how dangerous it could be to underestimate humanity. The battle had only just begun, and already the balance of power in the galaxy was shifting. The Concorde had been caught off guard by Earth's silent destroyer, and they were scrambling to regain control. But as they tried to rally their forces, a new and terrifying realization began to dawn on them. Humanity was not just defending its home. Humanity was fighting back, and it was fighting smarter, faster, and more ruthlessly than the Concorde had ever anticipated. On Earth's moon, inside the heart of the command center, General Rawl and his team watched as the silent destroyer continued its deadly assault. The ship had become a ghost in the midst of the chaos, appearing and disappearing with terrifying precision, leaving behind only destruction in its wake. It was an almost surreal sight. An alien fleet, once so sure of their dominance, now reeling in confusion and fear. The silent destroyer, a ship once thought to be a hopeless pile of scrap, was now the galaxy's most dangerous weapon. "Keep pushing them," General Rawl ordered. "We can't stop now. The Concorde needs to feel every ounce of their mistake." Dr. Leela Harris, watching from the control panel, nodded. "Ghosts is adapting faster than we expected. It's learning from every move they make, predicting their next step before they even know it themselves. We've got them on the ropes, but we need to stay one step ahead." The tension in the air was palpable. Every move, every strategy, every second mattered. This wasn't just a fight for Earth's survival, it was a fight for humanity's place in the galaxy. The Concorde had treated them as insignificant, as a minor species with no future. But now, humanity was proving them wrong in the most spectacular way. The silent destroyer had already taken down several of the Concorde's flagship warships, and now it was going after their smaller vessels. Each strike was a masterpiece of precision, and every explosion sent shockwaves through the enemy fleet. The Concorde had deployed countermeasures, scrambling to locate the invisible threat, but the silent destroyer was always one step ahead, slipping through their defenses like a shadow. Back in the heart of the Concorde fleet, Supreme Commander Taro could feel his frustration boiling over. The situation had gone from bad to worse, and he could see the morale of his officers deteriorating with every passing moment. The humans were no longer the weak, helpless species they had once thought them to be. They had become a terrifying adversary, and Taro knew they couldn't afford to lose face. Not now. "We need to eliminate that ship," Taro growled, his voice tight with anger. "Everything we have, throw it at them. Find that destroyer. Kill it." The Concorde fleet launched a full-scale offensive, sending everything they had at the target. Waves of alien ships surged forward, their weapons charging with deadly intent. It was clear they were no longer just trying to conquer Earth, they were trying to annihilate it. And in their rage, they underestimated what was about to happen next. From the darkness of space, the silent destroyer struck again. Its weapons fired in rapid succession, and once again, Concorde ships exploded into nothingness. But this time, something was different. The Concorde were fighting back with everything they had, and the silent destroyer was now faced with overwhelming numbers. It wasn't enough to rely solely on precision strikes. The destroyer had to outsmart its enemies at every turn. Dr. Harris watched in silence as the ship's systems went into overdrive, trying to calculate the best course of action. The Concorde had learned to cover their weaknesses, and they were now surrounding the destroyer from every angle. But Earth's secret weapon was not only the ship itself, it was the Ghost Eye, which was constantly evolving and adapting. "We need to buy more time," Dr. Harris said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "We've pushed them back, but if they keep coming like this, we won't last much longer. Ghost, initiate the evasive protocol. Take us into the asteroid belt." The silent destroyer's engines roared to life as it made a sharp turn toward the asteroid belt. It was a dangerous move, but it would allow them to disappear into the maze of rocks and debris, making it nearly impossible for the Concorde to track them. In the chaos of the asteroid field, the silent destroyer would have the upper hand. As the ship weaved in and out of the floating asteroids, the Concorde fleet hesitated, unsure of what to do next. The asteroid belt was a treacherous place for even the most experienced pilots, and the Concorde ships were not designed for this kind of environment. The silent destroyer, on the other hand, had been built for stealth and agility. It was the perfect predator in the wild, a shadow among the chaos. Inside the command center, General Rawl allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction. The Concorde were on the defensive now. They had been forced to retreat into the asteroid belt, and the silent destroyer was using the terrain to its advantage. It was a brilliant strategy, and it was paying off. But Rawl knew the war was far from over. The Concorde would regroup. They would learn from this, and they would come back with a vengeance. Earth's forces, though they had the silent destroyer, were still outnumbered and outgunned. The humans couldn't rely on one ship forever. If they were going to win this war, they needed to build on this success and keep the pressure on the Concorde. "The battle is far from won," General Rawl said, his voice calm but determined. "This is just the beginning. They'll be back." Dr. Harris looked at the holographic map, her fingers flying over the controls. "I know, but we've shown them something they didn't expect. Earth is not just a target. It's a force to be reckoned with." The silent destroyer emerged from the asteroid belt, its weapons recharged and ready. The Concorde, now disoriented and rattled, were vulnerable. This was the moment to strike again. Humanity had taken the first step toward securing its future, and they weren't about to let the Concorde take it away. With one final devastating blow, the silent destroyer fired again, sending another Concorde warship into oblivion. The message was clear. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The tides of war had shifted irrevocably. The Concorde, once an unstoppable force, were now reeling from a series of calculated strikes that left their fleet fractured and disoriented. Earth had not only defended itself, it had struck a blow that echoed across the galaxy. But this victory, however significant, was not the end. It was merely the beginning of a deeper, darker struggle that was far from over. Within the silent destroyer, General Mark Rawl paced back and forth in the command center, his thoughts heavy with the weight of what had transpired. The battle had been hard won, but the price of success had been steep. The Concorde had lost their grip on the immediate situation, but they were far from broken. Rawl knew the Concorde would come back, bigger, better equipped, and more prepared than before. They wouldn't let a single defeat destroy their pride. "Status report," General Rawl said, his voice low and steady, but filled with a sense of urgency. Dr. Leela Harris looked up from her console, her face bathed in the eerie glow of the data streams. "We've inflicted serious damage. The Concorde are scrambling to regroup, but they've started mobilizing reinforcements. Our victory was a shock to them, but they've got more ships on the way. We need to act fast." Rawl's mind raced. The silent destroyer had proven itself as a formidable weapon, but it was only one ship against an entire galaxy. Earth's future could not depend on a single vessel, no matter how powerful. They needed more. They needed an army. They needed a fleet. "We can't keep relying on the destroyer," Rawl muttered to himself, his eyes fixed on the holographic map of the galaxy. "We need to turn the tide permanently. We need our own fleet, and we need it now." Dr. Harris' fingers flew over the controls, accessing various military databases and scanning available resources. "There's a plan. It won't be easy, but we can do it. The materials are scattered across various military installations and research stations on Earth and the Moon. If we can integrate the new designs, we can start building a fleet." The plan was audacious. The silent destroyer had shown humanity's potential when it came to turning the impossible into reality. Now the same ingenuity would be applied to create an entire fleet of ships capable of striking back at the Concorde. But the timeline was tight. Every second they delayed would give the Concorde more time to rebuild their forces. The clock was ticking. "We need to bring together all the resources we have," Rawl said, his voice firm. "Gather every scientist, every engineer, every soldier we can spare. The Concorde will be back in force, and we need to be ready." Across the globe, Earth's military and scientific community mobilized like never before. The ingenuity and resilience that had driven the silent destroyer's creation were now put to use in designing a fleet that would rival the Concorde's. As engineers worked tirelessly, creating blueprints for new ships, Earth's finest minds worked on even more advanced technology, hoping to stay one step ahead. Meanwhile, the Concorde were not idle. Supreme Commander Taro, humiliated by the defeat, had returned to his flagship, his mind consumed with thoughts of revenge. His fleet had been devastated, and Earth had proven itself to be far more dangerous than anticipated. Taro knew his forces had to be rebuilt, But the knowledge that humanity had developed a weapon capable of outsmarting and overpowering his fleet was a terrifying thought. "We will rebuild," Taro said to his commanders, his voice seething with rage. "But we will not forget this humiliation. We will crush Earth permanently." His eyes flicked to the map of Earth, now under heavy surveillance. "Prepare the reinforcements," he ordered. "This time, we will not be caught off guard." But Taro's thirst for vengeance blinded him to the reality that humanity was not merely a thorn in the side of the Concorde. It was a rising power, a force that was starting to pull together in ways that the Concorde had never anticipated. The silent destroyer's journey continued. It moved between Earth and its various moon bases, collecting critical materials and preparing for its next assault. As the engineers aboard the ship worked around the clock to make necessary upgrades, General Rahl and Dr. Harris finalized plans for the next phase. "We've got the technology now," Dr. Harris said, her voice filled with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "We're not just building warships. We're building a new kind of fleet, faster, smarter, and stronger than anything the Concorde can throw at us. The Concorde have relied on brute force for too long. It's time we show them that we don't need their size to win." But Rahl couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty. The new ships would be formidable, but they weren't yet a match for the sheer scale of the Concorde's forces. And Earth's resources, though vast, were still finite. Time was running out. "We're not just fighting for survival anymore," Rahl said quietly, as he looked out into the void of space. "We're fighting for something more. We're fighting for the future of every species that the Concorde have oppressed. Earth can be the spark that ignites a revolution." In the weeks that followed, Earth's shipyards churned out new vessels at an astonishing rate. The ships were built with the silent destroyer's blueprints as a foundation, incorporating new advancements in technology and weaponry. Earth's engineers created advanced energy shields, hyper-efficient propulsion systems, and weaponry that could match the destructive power of the Concorde's most advanced warships. These new ships weren't just war machines, they were symbols of humanity's defiance and determination. However, the construction of these ships was not without its challenges. As more ships were completed, the logistics of keeping them supplied and ready for battle became an ever-growing task. Earth's economy and infrastructure had been pushed to the breaking point, and the pressure was mounting. General Rahl, now overseeing the construction of Earth's first true fleet, was in constant contact with military leaders from around the globe. The final pieces were falling into place. The fleet was ready. But just as Earth prepared for its moment of resurgence, the Concorde made their move. A massive reinforced fleet arrived at Earth's doorstep, larger, more deadly, and more determined than ever. Supreme Commander Taro had come for one thing: to finish what he had started. Earth's days of defiance were over, or so he thought. As the enemy fleet took position, General Rahl gathered his forces, preparing for the ultimate confrontation. The silent destroyer, now accompanied by Earth's newly created fleet, was ready. A new war was about to begin, and this time, humanity would be the one on the offensive. In the cold, vast expanse of space, the stage was set for a battle that would shape the future of the galaxy. The Concorde had underestimated Earth before, but they would soon learn that humanity had only just begun to fight. The final confrontation was at hand. The Concorde, battered and bruised from their previous defeats, had assembled their mightiest fleet. The massive warships, carriers, and dreadnoughts filled the expanse of space in front of Earth's orbit. Their engines hummed like a chorus of death, their weapons brimming with potential destruction. This time, they would not fail. This time, Earth would be crushed. But Earth was no longer the defenseless colony it once was. The silent destroyer had proven that, and now it had company. The fleet that humanity had built was small compared to the Concorde's overwhelming numbers, but it was built with purpose, intelligence, and ingenuity. Every ship was a reflection of humanity's ingenuity, armed with technology designed to strike fast and strike hard. They were ready for the fight of their lives, knowing full well that this would be the battle that determined the fate of their species. General Rawl stood before the large holographic map, his hands clenched behind his back as he studied the Concorde's fleet. His face was hardened, his mind focused, as he reviewed the data streaming in from the silent destroyer and Earth's new warships. Every movement, every action, had to be precise. He couldn't afford a mistake. Not this time. "We can't take them head-on," Rawl muttered under his breath, his eyes scanning the sheer size of the approaching alien fleet. "We need to outmaneuver them, hit them where it hurts, and make them panic." Dr. Harris, standing beside him, nodded. Ghost has been analyzing their tactics. The Concorde are used to overwhelming their enemies with sheer numbers. But they've never faced anything like this before. The silent destroyer, combined with our new fleet, will make them question everything they know about war. The silent destroyer, now fully equipped with additional firepower and defensive capabilities, was still the centerpiece of humanity's strategy. Ghost, the AI that controlled it, had grown more advanced since its initial deployment. It had learned from the previous battles, studying the Concorde's weaknesses and adapting to their tactics. The destroyer was now a perfect predator in space, capable of striking silently, invisibly, and without warning. The rest of the fleet was no less impressive. Though smaller in number, humanity's new ships were equipped with cloaking devices, advanced shields, and high-powered energy weapons that could pierce through the toughest Concorde armor. They were built for speed and stealth, designed to hit the enemy quickly and then vanish before the Concorde could retaliate. "General," one of the officers interrupted, his voice tense, "the Concorde are moving. They're beginning their offensive." Rawl's mind snapped into action. Activate the fleet. Initiate evasive maneuvers for the silent destroyer. We need them on the move before they know we're here. Dr. Harris pressed a series of commands into her console, her fingers moving rapidly. "Ghost is locking onto the lead Concorde ship. We'll hit them first, disorient them, and then pull back. The rest of the fleet is standing by." The silent destroyer powered up, its engines humming quietly as it began to move, cloaked and invisible to the Concorde sensors. Earth's fleet followed suit, a shadow in space, ready to strike. The battle had begun. The Concorde, completely unaware of the human ships waiting in the dark, moved forward in tight formations. They felt confident. They had overwhelming numbers, and they believed that humanity's new fleet was just a last-ditch effort to delay their inevitable conquest. They couldn't have been more wrong. The first strike came without warning. The silent destroyer emerged from the shadows, its weapons unleashing a barrage of plasma bolts that ripped through the lead Concorde ship's shields and tore into its hull. The massive alien warship shuddered, its engines faltering. It was chaos on board. The crew had no idea what had just hit them. Before they could respond, Earth's fleet struck, weaving in and out of the larger Concorde formations, firing on weaker, smaller ships, and disappearing back into the darkness of space. The speed and precision of the attack were overwhelming. The Concorde were scrambling, their communications chaotic, as they tried desperately to figure out where the next blow would come from. "This is impossible," Supreme Commander Taro muttered, watching as another one of his ships exploded in a fiery ball of debris. "How are they doing this?" On the bridge of his flagship, Commander Varn, one of Taro's most trusted officers, spoke up, his voice full of frustration. "Their ships are too fast, too unpredictable. We can't track them. It's like they know every move we make before we do." Taro slammed his fist on the console in front of him, his eyes burning with fury. "Get those cloaking devices online. We need to find them and kill them. Now." But the more they tried to adapt, the worse things became. Every time they focused on one section of space, another strike came from a different direction. The silent destroyer's ability to remain undetected, combined with Earth's new fleet speed, was devastating. The Concorde were being torn apart piece by piece, their ships breaking off into smaller, disoriented groups, unable to maintain a cohesive front. The battle raged for hours, and the Concorde's pride began to fracture. No longer was it just a battle for territory. It had become a battle for survival. The alien fleet, once thought to be unbeatable, was now on the back foot. The damage was mounting, their flagship warships falling one by one. And as the Concorde reeled, the silent destroyer moved in for the final blow. General Rahl, watching the chaos unfold through his fleet's sensor feeds, could hardly believe what he was seeing. "They're falling apart," he said in a low voice. "We've got them." But he knew better than to celebrate prematurely. The Concorde were dangerous even in retreat. They still had forces hidden in reserve. And Taro, though wounded by his fleet's losses, would not go down without a fight. "We need to finish this now," Rahl ordered. "Focus all fire on their command ships. They're the last thing keeping the fleet together." Dr. Harris nodded, her hands flying over the console to send the final commands. The silent destroyer's weapons locked on to the Concorde flagship, its massive energy cannons charging with destructive power. In a split second, a devastating shot tore through the flagship's shields and ripped into its core. The ship groaned under the pressure. And then, with a deafening explosion, the flagship disintegrated in a flash of light. With the command ship destroyed, the remaining Concorde forces were thrown into disarray. Without leadership, their fleet began to collapse. Ships fled in every direction, many of them abandoning their posts altogether. The battle was over. For the first time in history, humanity had achieved something no one had thought possible. They had defeated the mighty Concorde. General Rahl stood at the center of the command center, looking at the remains of the battle. The victory was immense, but it came at a cost. Earth had lost ships, lives, and precious resources, but they had proven something more important. They were not just survivors. They were warriors. "We've won," Dr. Harris said quietly, her voice filled with disbelief. "We've actually won." Rahl nodded, but his face remained stoic. "This isn't the end. It's only the beginning. The Concorde will regroup. But now, they know that Earth is not a target. They're dealing with a force." And as the remnants of the Concorde fleet scattered into the void, one thing became clear. Humanity had shown its true strength. The silent destroyer, and everything it represented, had forged the future of the galaxy. And nothing would ever be the same again. In the wake of battle, the silence of space was filled with both relief and uncertainty. Humanity had dealt a crushing blow to the galactic Concorde, and the remnants of their once mighty fleet drifted away like lost ghosts. But as the dust settled, General Mark Rahl and his team knew that the true test was only just beginning. Back on Earth, and in the scattered outposts across the moon, a new day was dawning. The news of the victory spread like wildfire. For years, humanity had been seen as weak and insignificant, a species easily manipulated by more powerful races. Now, the world saw that strength did not always come from the size of a fleet or the depth of technology alone. It came from the heart, the will to fight back, and the courage to build something greater out of betrayal. In the quiet halls of the command center, General Rahl reviewed the latest reports. There were losses to mourn, brave men and women who had given their lives, and countless resources that had been poured into the battle. But amid the sorrow, there was hope and determination. The silent destroyer, once considered a scrap of rusted metal, had become a symbol of what humanity could achieve when pushed to its limits. Dr. Leela Harris, whose brilliant mind had driven the creation of the ship's unique AI, Ghost, walked beside him. "We did it," she said softly, not as a statement of victory alone, but as a promise of what was yet to come. "We showed the galaxy that we can stand on our own. Now we must build on this win." The leaders of Earth gathered to discuss the future. They knew the Concorde would not let their defeat go unanswered. The survivors of the alien fleet would regroup, seeking revenge and the restoration of their lost pride. But humanity had learned a valuable lesson. Unity was their greatest weapon. The betrayal that once nearly brought them to their knees had instead sparked a new era of innovation and resilience. Plans were quickly drawn up to transform the battlefields of space into a training ground for a new kind of fleet. Earth's scientists and engineers, working day and night, began designing ships that were smarter, faster, and built with the lessons of the past. They infused every design with the spirit of the silent destroyer, ensuring that each new vessel carried the legacy of courage and ingenuity. As months passed, Earth's new fleet slowly took shape. The shipyards buzzed with activity, and factories worked around the clock. Every new ship was more than just a weapon. It was a testament to humanity's unyielding spirit. Citizens from every corner of the planet watched with pride as their military and scientific communities rose to the challenge. The message was clear. No longer would humanity be a pawn in the hands of greater powers. They had taken their destiny into their own hands. Meanwhile, far from Earth, deep in the cold reaches of space, the remnants of the Concorde were forced into retreat. Their commanders, once so confident, now felt the sting of humiliation. Supreme Commander Taro's voice, once filled with authority and scorn, now carried a note of desperation. He had learned that brute force and overwhelming numbers were no match for the cunning of a unified people. In secret councils, he and his officers began to wonder if their old ways would ever work again in a galaxy where the spirit of defiance burned brightly. On Earth, life began to return to normal, but the memory of the battle lingered. Statues were erected in honor of those who had fallen, and songs were sung about the day when the silent destroyer changed the course of history. In schools, children learned not only about the events of that fateful war, but also about the values that had made victory possible: unity, determination, and the refusal to surrender even in the darkest hours. General Rahl continued to lead, now not just as a military commander, but as a symbol of hope and resilience. He traveled across the globe, meeting with leaders, sharing strategies, and reinforcing the idea that Earth must always be ready to defend itself. His eyes, weathered yet determined, held the promise of a new era, a future where humanity would no longer be seen as weak or insignificant. Dr. Harris, now at the helm of further technological advancements, pushed the boundaries of what was possible. Under her guidance, the Ghost Eye evolved, its capabilities growing with every battle simulation and real-life test. It was not just a tool of war, but a guardian of the peace that humanity had fought so hard to achieve. In the vast canvas of the galaxy, Earth's role was changing. The planet was no longer a backwater world, hidden in the shadow of larger empires. It was emerging as a beacon of hope and a warning to any who might dare to underestimate the power of a united people. The betrayal that had once seemed like a death sentence had instead laid the foundation for a revolution built on the strength of its failures and the courage to rise again. As the stars shone down on the renewed fleet, there was a shared understanding among Earth's people. The journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, and the Concorde might seek to reclaim their lost honor. Yet, with every new ship that left the docks, with every training exercise that honed the skills of their pilots, humanity was writing a new chapter in the history of the galaxy. A chapter where betrayal was transformed into power, weakness into strength, and despair into hope. And so, as the silent destroyer sailed silently through space, its legacy was secure, a symbol of what humanity could achieve when it refused to bow down. The future was uncertain, and the battles ahead would be many, but Earth had found its voice. It was a voice that would echo among the stars, a promise that no matter how dark the night, humanity would always rise again.